What's up, my fellow internet users, and welcome back to yet another video or yet another episode of GraphRant. This is episode number 2, and today we're going to be ranting about this particular graph. I think that, well, as you can see, it's not really up to date, but I remember this graph being quite popular or quite kind of shared on the social media. I think it was around the 2016 elections. I think it was after it, or maybe 1 year after it. So around the time when still the Trump hate was at its peak, and people could not really see like what or why Trump was elected. And this graph was sort of like the vocal point of most of the left people. So, most of the leftists, they say like, oh, look at how Republicans are getting more and more extreme. But I don't really see that being there. I more see kind of like a difference and centrism dying out when I look at these graphs. If you don't know what they represent, maybe you don't quite understand. Basically, it shows how, as you can see, there are these labels like consistently liberal, consistently conservative, and as you can see, as the year pass by, look at the top ones, the difference between the belief system of one and the belief system of the second, there is a wide gap. This is like political value. It's even stated in the like subtitle here. Or political engagement is are the two graphs. So the upper ones are for politically engaged and the other ones are less engaged. So but even there you can see that the difference is slightly, that the difference is slightly moving. So it's not like everybody can agree on everything, even the people who are less engaged in politics in general. So the point is that today most of the left, they always complain like, well, look at everybody, how they're racist and how they're extremist. But the exact same can be said about the left. And if you look at the graph quite closely, all right, okay, the right has shifted, but not so much as the left. Look where the left went. It went like at least half the. It went like I can't. You can't really see it very good on the graph, but the line of the Republican people, it didn't shift that much. It kind of, I wouldn't say it remained stable, but it shifted only a little bit, right? Which is still bad, but it shifted. But the Democrat one, it just started taking like turns anywhere. Look at the Democrat slope versus the Republican. It's like the Republican, there is a steep slope, while the Democrats, they have like a very more shallower scope down, and means there is a greater difference. And the thing is that I don't really want to generalize, but the general populace of the consistently liberal, these ones here, the line, they're gonna call everybody that's on the right of the line extremist. So that makes really inefficient political discussions, and that, generally speaking, makes more hate than friends. Right? Politics was always about disagreement. It was always about two parties or two or even three or many people exchanging opinions on what's best about society, right? But the best view you can probably have is that you're not Democrat or Republican. You're basically a centrist, and well, you are able to listen to both sides. And as you can see, centrism is kind of like the darker one there. It's dying out. More and more people are either joining this side or that side, and generally speaking, more and more people are not really agreeing with the other ones. It's like there is this big diversion. There is no like common ground they can find. I believe that the consistently liberal person cannot find a middle ground with the consistently conservative person. Look how far they are from the middle ground. Now compare that to, let's say, 1994 or 1994 for both parts. Like, they still disagree, but the way to the middle ground, it's much lower. Like, there isn't that much trouble you have to go through in order to agree with somebody on something, even from the opposing side. And I think that it's quite interesting to see that the biggest diversion yet was between 2004 and 2014. And you have to wonder why. Well, that was exactly the problem that I think it was Google who addressed it. But Google tried to, play it in the favor of the consumer, but, it created more hysteria than it helped. So basically, Google is a search engine, right? So the basic thing is that Google, it helps you search for things which you want to search for. Now, that is not really something bad, right? That's the function of the search engine. But when concerning politics, now there comes a very gray area of whether, Google has the right to be a search engine or it has the right to modify the results. And I'm not talking about the entire controversy of them trying to, diminish Trump's campaign and kind of uplift Hillary. The same is happening to Joe Biden and Trump now, right? Trump bad, Joe Biden good. It was before it was Hillary good, Trump bad. It's the same ethic. But what Google does is that, and I think most of the extremism comes from this. Even I think the entire flat Earth movement came from this. It's if I enter into Google flat Earth theories, um, or something like that, it will most likely give me flat Earth theories. It won't give me the top rated articles. It works a bit differently. For example, I'm using DuckDuckGo exactly for this reason, because DuckDuckGo, it doesn't use algorithms. It kind of like looks at the keywords and finds the top clicked articles with the keywords. So it basically says like, okay, flat earth theories. Let's try and find the most relevant result of flat earth theories. While in Google, when you input that, it runs this algorithm which tries to find the most matching results. And there's a big difference between that. Because if I type flat earth theories, I can very easily get to web pages where my view will be commented on as something genius, as something awesome, because I entered those specific keywords. But on DuckDuckGo, if you enter it, it might bring up a scientific article. It might bring somebody who was talking about how these theories are not relevant. It's not going to bring up web pages that are literally visited by 5 people. It's going to bring up, generally speaking, more trustworthy web page. You can say that the web page that is more visited is more trustworthy. I think you can make that claim and make it pretty strong, and it does make sense. It generally makes sense, like big news outlets, okay? They, even if you mistrust them, which I think you should, but even if you mistrust them, they at least serve up their articles based on real facts. The thing is, they kind of twitch around with the facts and play around with statistics to get their worldview in it, but it's much better than one of those conspiracy articles that provide false evidence that wasn't really taken anywhere or doesn't really have a reliable source. It's just like, oh, my friend said it and he overheard it in a casino when he was playing roulette there. It's like those kind of sources. Those don't appear at major web pages like BBC, CNN, Fox News, right? Those types of sources do not appear there. And if they do, the articles are taken down, at least from what I've heard. I might be wrong about this, but that's the standard procedure as far as I am concerned. But what happens is somebody searches Trump Trump something, right? And Google, it matches, the site of Donald Trump, some Donald Trump supporters, some this and that Donald Trump group, instead of showing the most visited articles. So for example, it might not show a critique of Trump. Instead, it will show like, oh, why is Trump so awesome? Well, DuckDuckGo, this is not an advertisement for DuckDuckGo. There are many, 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 many web browsers which are browsers and not search engines. I don't know the exact word for it. I think a search engine was the one that tries to find the most matching results, and a web browser was the one that tries to find the most relevant web pages. I'm not sure about that. That's some lingo. And I think that entire dynamic on the internet, the rise of the internet, the rise of the conspiracy and misinformation, the rise of InfoWars, basically. Not the show, but I kind of named the entire war of information, people trying to stuff this opinion at all costs necessary. We are in the middle of a war. whether you like it or not, but it's an information war. It's much more subtle. It's not people killing people. It's basically how much information that benefits you can you get out there and how many people can it persuade. That is basically the war we are fighting. And the winner is the man who can make his information most relevant or make it seem like they're relevant and persuade therefore the most people. Right? So political campaigns have basically become this. Long gone are the days of pins and old fucking posters at lampposts and the president going house to house and talking about problems. Long are gone those days. Today it's about advertisements, target advertising. Today it's about districts. That is basically what Cambridge Analytica did. They were able to use this machinery to construct giant campaigns and basically win elections or overturn. They basically were able to change opinions of people just by the internet. And that is something very dangerous, but at the same time kind of amazing if you think about it. I think Cambridge Analytica had that scandal where it was some South American country where they basically like overturned or uh, vetoed. It was like what was it exactly? It's some kind of paper that the government wanted to sign. I don't know if it was a petition or a referendum. I'm not quite sure. Something along those lines. But they basically managed to persuade the entire young population to kind of vote in the way that they wanted, and therefore the entire thing was vetoed. They managed to do that with the help of internet in an almost third world country. Now, if that isn't amazing, then I don't know what is. And there have been rumors, and I think they are true, that the Cambridge Analytica has been in charge of Trump's 2016 campaign, right? So, but then you have to ask yourself the question if it's moral or if it's not moral, if it should be legal or not legal. Because Cambridge Analytica was fined, but I don't think they were fined precisely for this. I think they were fined for like misusing data and not really and the user not being able to like see the data they collect, and they kind of like misguiding what they're gonna do with the data. And I think Facebook was the same. It's not illegal, I think, at least, to change opinions of people with precise targeted advertisements, but you have to understand these are more like propaganda. And the results of these propaganda are this graph. This graph is basically the concrete evidence that we are caught up in an info war and that we have to act somehow. Now, how do we act? I think it all boils down to stop reading the news, stop reading magazines, stop reading mainly those opinion blogs. Those are the fucking worst. I don't give a flying shit what somebody from New York Times thinks about a certain issue. I have my own mind on that topic, don't I? So we have to stop constantly reading these magazines and this nonsense about I don't fucking know what. We have to stop reading bullshit like that. We have to stop reading these newspapers that try to, just push down a certain propaganda. We have to stop taking our politics from the internet. And I always advocate that people should always look, okay, let's look at the facts. Let's look at this politician that I'm voting. Is he really something that the internet claims him to be? Or he is not? Are my values aligned with what I actually believe, or is it because some newspaper told me to believe? These are the questions we need to ask. We need to ask, where are our opinions formed, from where do we get information, and how do we obtain those information? We have to be able to ask these questions to ourselves, not to the media. The media is going to say they're trustworthy. We all know they're not trustworthy. And that is the important nugget of information, I guess, that I can give you. And that is the only thing how we can make this thing kind of go away. Because if this continues, the trend continues in 2024, there will be no centrism. There will be just fucking blind spot. It will be like two people fighting. And once centrism died and once informed opinions die, anything can basically happen. If you just have two camps constantly fighting, it's very easy to sell bullets at that time, and that's not gonna be good. Right? I'm not advocating for centrism. If you're a strong Democrat or Republican, go ahead. But you have to ask yourself if those values reflect you, if those values are what you would stand for if you were in that position, or there are just something you read on the internet and now you are kind of inclined to believe it. I think that is all that it boils down, right? And just don't go with the flow if the flow means that we are gonna soon kill each other over who voted for whom. All right, so that's my 2 cents in on the graph rant. That was my rant. And yeah, see you around on the next video.